Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris is now on the Audacy app and Audacy.com.
Now, it's time for Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Here's your host, Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome to the January edition of Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris on the Audacy app and wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube and all over social media. We've had him on Sports Scene multiple times, Sports Highlights. Let's welcome Jim Ducibella. How are you, my friend?
Good, Greg. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, always. Okay, let's get right into it. Jimmy, of course, has been a renowned author. He's worked for The Pilot, and, of course, he's in several Hall of Fames as well. Jim, 12-5 for Washington. When you and I talked last, nobody would have ever predicted this, and they just keep on winning. Almost reminds me of how NC State won the national championship in '83. By no means am I saying Washington will beat Philadelphia or win the Super Bowl, but they are sure playing like a team with house money.
Well, that's a great analogy and one that I hadn't thought of. Yeah, this is the most remarkable season maybe of any NFL team. I know that the 99 Colts were 10 games better than the previous season, led by Edgerrin James and Peyton Manning. But no one expected this team to win more than 5 or 6 games. And see them at 14 and with a chance to get to the Super Bowl is truly remarkable and maybe the best story in the NFL in years and years and years.
Especially, Jim, with a rookie quarterback who played for several colleges, who never really got a grip at one school, was kind of erratic, but they saw something in him, and they were right.
I actually think that worked in his favor to play at 2 or 3 different places at the level that he played at, because they were at the top of the college food chain. And I think he started 55 games in college. So he's not the traditional rookie quarterback. I think he came in with a lot more experience and certainly a lot more poise than 99.9% of rookie quarterbacks that we've ever seen. Maybe Dan Marino would be a fair comparison.
It's ironic because Washington did make the postseason under Rivera. They played Tampa Bay. Of course, they lost to them. But, you look back at when they played Green Bay and, of course, Seattle a few times. It's really just a handful of times, basically, since Gibbs was there.
Well, it's been a long dry spell, for sure, which I think is part of the reason why the fan base is so completely energized and so psyched up, is because it's been basically a 25-year wait for something close to competence. I mean, they were 7-9 the last time they made the playoffs and lost that game to the Buccaneers. Tom Brady with Taylor Heineke playing quarterback, and who you knew, as much as you liked his story, you knew he wasn't a bona fide NFL starting quarterback.
Yeah, and of course, both teams will be somewhat rested. They're playing Sunday afternoon. Of course, the key for Philadelphia, of course, is going to be how healthy is Hurts, and of course, Barkley getting off to a good start.
Yeah, Barkley got off to a great start the last time that they played, and then they shut him down in the second half. So there'll be some adjustments that Washington's defense will make. I suspect that they will play 3 defensive tackles, Allen, Newton, and Dyron Payne, with 1 rush end in order to try and clog up the interior of the Philadelphia line. And they're going to have to tackle better than they've tackled most every game other than last week against the Lions. Barkley is more of a key than Hurts, because Hurts, all he has to do is hand off to the kid, and he doesn't have to win the game himself. Barkley is the kind of player who could win the game all by himself.
Talking to Jim Ducibella, this is Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris, our January edition, of course, on the Audacy app. And Jim, you got to look at it too. Washington played in Florida their first game against Tampa Bay. They played indoors their second game against Detroit, of course, who's had a lot of injuries. And now, of course, they play a team not that far away from them distance-wise. It'll be a cold day, but it won't be nothing like Buffalo or Kansas City.
No, and it won't be anything like the game in Philadelphia last week either, from what I understand. So I think that weather, I think, would be insignificant. I'm not even sure. I know that Vegas has to do this, but I'm not even sure the exercise of declaring one team to be the, quote, the favorite by X number of points applies when you get this close to the Super Bowl. These teams are pretty, I don't know if they're pretty even, but what they're good at, Washington's pretty good at, and vice versa. And I think that it's more of an even match, particularly lately with the way Washington's defense has sort of stepped up. Getting Lattimore last week made a huge difference, getting him out in the field. This will be the third or fourth game that he's played. He's obviously rounded into shape. San Rastil, the other cornerback, had a great game against the Lions. He looks like he's a bona fide starter. I think they're in better condition defensively than they have been, even since the last time they played Philadelphia.
And the NFL totally gets it. They're playing this game Sunday afternoon, of course. Kansas City and Buffalo will be playing after that. But, of course, this is right in the afternoon. People don't have to fall asleep in the second half to watch it. I'm not a big fan of these late-night games. I get it. It's all about TV. But I'm sorry you lose a lot of the East Coast in the second half. People will get their dinner. They'll watch the game. This doesn't happen that often. And I've got a speaking engagement at 5 o'clock.
Well, I would cancel it if I were you.
I wish.
I don't terribly mind the 6:30 start, the evening game. I think that's a concession to some of what you're saying. And clearly the Buffalo-Kansas City game of the two is considered the marquee game of the weekend. And for good reason. Those are two very wonderful teams. And you've got, Mahomes versus Allen. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I forgot the quarterback's name for Kansas City. For Buffalo, Josh Allen. You've got two of the premier, if not the premier quarterbacks in the league. And as good as Daniels has been, he's still a rookie, and he still hasn't really established himself as among the elite. In fact, that's one of the big debates this week. Is he even a top 5 quarterback? I tend to think that we need more time to establish that. And I don't put Hurts in that category at this point in his career either.
Yeah, Hurts needs to get over the hurdle just like Lamar Jackson does at this point. I mean, You can get close and close. Jackson always gets a lot of havoc for Baltimore, but Hurts, of course, is the same way. He really needs – this is house money. They're really, have an opportunity. This is not a great Kansas City team. Of course, it's a solid team. Everybody else will take it, but they're beatable. Buffalo's beatable. Obviously, Washington is. And it's funny, too, Jim, really nobody's talking much about Washington still. They're still talking Kansas City, Buffalo, and will Hurts get over the hurdle? And they're really not spending that much time talking about Washington. You've got coaching changes going on, so there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I think the national conversation has been about those three teams and the coaching changes, and I do think Washington is looked at as sort of an interloper. And to be honest with you, I was thinking about this the other day. You don't hear anybody talk about Dan Quinn as Coach of the Year. You don't hear anybody talk about Jaden Daniels as Player of the Year, and because I think the national media, quote unquote, to paint with a broad brush, thinks this is all a fluke somehow. And I don't think it is a fluke. I look at the way they built this team during the off season, and it's a great business model, frankly, for any company. They brought in people from successful organizations who were leaders of those organizations who would come in and help add to the coaching staff the expertise that the coaching staff had. And the other players have learned by following the example of the Bobby Wagners and the Austin Ecklers and the Zach Ertzes and those people. It's like hiring, vice presidents from very successful companies and having them come in to play the same function with your budding organization.
And Washington's done enough to beat these teams. No blowouts. They've won some big games, but of course they're doing it in workmanlike fashion, but they're getting the job done. They're getting the wins, and that's all that matters, and that's all that people are going to remember. And really, I don't think, again, like you said, they're going to get a lot of attention until they get to the big game or the Super Bowl, and then they're going to have to, because it'll be a 2-week bye basically till they play. But I'm thinking Philadelphia will probably win big is what the media is thinking. We'll just talk about Philly and then whoever they're going to play next. And that's been like the narrative right now.
Well, Philadelphia is very much like Buffalo. They've been on the cusp, and everybody looks at them and says, how can this team not make a Super Bowl with the talent they have? Of course, Philly was there a few years ago. Philly's got a dominant defensive unit, particularly up front with Jalen Carter, and that's a problem for Washington, since its best offensive lineman, Sam Cosmi, is out. How are they going to block Jalen Carter? He's a one-man wrecking crew, and he's got plenty of help. So I think there's legitimate reasons for people to look at Philadelphia as a favorite and as a lock to make the Super Bowl. It's just not necessarily the case on the field.
Washington beat the Saints 20-19, and they've been just winning ever since. Close games. Most of their games this year have been close. They lost to the Steelers by 1 point, of course, and they beat teams like the Giants by 5. But really, they've done very, very well. Let's switch.
And they've won all those games on the last play of the game. Let's face it.
Yeah.
5 or 6 games have come down to the very last play, including New Orleans, where they stopped a 2-point conversion. The Bears game, the miracle Hail Mary toss, who knows how different the season would be. That game alone set Chicago back for the rest of the year. Had Washington lost that game, had the ball not been tipped to Noah Brown in the end zone, who knows what would have happened to the Commanders. So, I mean, they've been teetering on the edge the entire year.
Yeah, and it's so hard to win an NFL game. This year has proven that so much, 100%. How about some of these coaching changes, Jim? And, of course, who would have thought Belichick, well into his 70s, would have the patience to deal with teenage kids about what college they're going to go to? And I said a really good point yesterday when Sports Highlights, when we were taping it, was that college football today, or college basketball, you saw where the UVA basketball coach left several months ago before the season, they've got to recruit their own players just to come back next year at their own school.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think the system that Belichick has set up is very much like a pro system with a general manager who takes control of the financial issues that now involve college athletics. I am surprised that he's on the road to different high schools. I understand he was up at DeMatha High School in Hyattsville the other day recruiting a kid. They've gotten a quarterback, I think, from Maury the other day, decided to go to North Carolina. I'm surprised that he's done that, and I don't know what his motivation is, whether it's the fact that he just got bored, whether the fact that his father coached at Carolina at one point in time in his career, Steve Belichick, or whether it's the aspirations of his girlfriend, whatever those are. She's a young woman. I don't know what it certainly can't be the money, but I think that maybe it's just the eternal quest for a new challenge. But it's shocking to me that he would accept that job.
Absolutely, of course. Really, especially at his age, it's almost like a setup job for his son, but we'll see. Plus, there's still several NFL openings, but it seems like they're going to come and go by pretty quick. Jim, any golf news about any of your books coming up or anything else?
No, I'm still doing the column for the Virginia Golfer magazine, and this past issue, which just came out, I've expanded it to do a story on Sewell's Point in Norfolk and a 100-year-old misidentification, where for basically 100 years people have been under the impression that Donald Ross designed Sewell's Point, one of the very few Donald Ross courses that is still open to the public, and yet history has uncovered that it's not a Donald Ross course. It actually was designed by a fellow named William Flynn. And so I wrote a very long story for Virginia Golfer magazine about that whole circumstance and that whole situation, how it came about, how it would have been kept a secret had it not been for one man named Ed Ware, who wrote a column for the Virginian Pilot saying that Sewell's Point was turning 100 and such and such and such and such and such and such should be done. I picked up the column and ran one for Virginia Golfer. They called and got me involved as a partner in the first initial celebration stage, and then we find out that everything about what we were doing was wrong. That it wasn't a Donald Ross, that it's in fact a William Flynn. And how does the Navy react to this now is the next question, which has gone unanswered so far, but it's still early in that process yet. But it's a fascinating story. If you have an opportunity to get the Virginia Golfer magazine, I would suggest picking it up. You can go online and read it at vsga.org. So that's the kind of thing I'm doing these days and enjoying it tremendously.
Have you watched that golf program, that simulated golf program? They're trying to get different cities involved, because I've got zero interest in it, but I know some people do like it. I think golf is just trying to become more relevant, trying to get a younger audience. And I get that, but I have no interest in it. What about you?
I've seen some of it. I haven't watched a lot, to be very honest with you. But knowing that I do these types of things occasionally and somebody would ask about it, I have watched a little bit of it. I agree with what you're saying in terms of the motivation behind doing it, keeping golf in the public domain during the off-season, even though I didn't think there was an off-season in golf the way they play all over the world. It's kind of sterile to me. I know that they're trying to juice it up by moving greens and all that. I'm not impressed. I know that people who are attending these things in the audience, in the crowd, are bona fide hardcore golf fans, and that's fine. It works for them. I don't know what the ratings have been like so far, but I suspect that even though it's a Tiger and Rory McIlroy thing, I don't think the ratings are going to be all that great. And there's nothing like watching the game in the natural setting that it's supposed to be played in.
Yeah, I've been going to Kingsmill a lot lately, and I always reminisce about the river course. Last thing, Jim, give us your perspective. You've lived on the peninsula, but you worked on the south side for years. Trying to get across the tunnel still has not evolved. They're still working on new tunnels, but of course now they got the cold weather. It gets dark early. Do you think Hampton Roads will ever be fluid and transparent with transportation?
Well, God knows I have several things about that. I do hope that the new bridge tunnels will alleviate some of the constant stress and strain that getting from one side to the other has created, and has really held this region back tremendously, more than anybody could ever imagine. I'm very, very disappointed that the short-sightedness of regional officials. I don't understand why there isn't rapid transit or light rail or some sort of subway, something that connects the two sides. If they can build a tunnel, for God's sakes, between Paris and London with a train that goes from one end to the other, why can't we do something like that from Norfolk to Hampton, or Norfolk to Newport News, or Virginia Beach to Newport, wherever it has to go? It really has held things back, and it gives you cause to wonder about whether or not this area will ever evolve to its fullest potential. And so far, in my humble opinion, it never has. And unless some things change, rapid transit is, not even the way of the future. It's been the way of the future for 50 years, for God's sakes. And nothing's been done other than that little dinky train that runs around Norfolk. It's pathetic, and it's sad, and it shows a real lack of creative leadership.
Yeah, nothing like the big cities at all. They're constantly moving. Weather is a constant issue here. We could have rain. It could back up traffic for hours, let alone snow. And, of course, there always seems to be an issue. The thing I don't like is there's always major delays, even when there's no wrecks in the tunnel. And I've never seen such phobia in my life over the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. Nothing compares to it.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I've driven through a lot of tunnels in my life, and most of the places I've been, people just go through the tunnels as though it's just another part of the highway. But here we've got everybody clenching their teeth, as they go through this thing for good reason. They've spent, my wife and I have tickets to ODU games, and there have been several games and several events at the university that we can't get to because we leave 2 hours early and we get to the tunnel and we stop for 45 minutes to an hour and we just turn around and go back. It's insane. It really is. And when you look at the history of the area, how they wanted to put a regional airport here similar to what Charlotte was, we turned it down. Look at the way Charlotte has developed and blossomed and boomed, aided in no small measure by the airport. I mean, the leadership in this area has made some of the worst decisions that you could possibly imagine in terms of moving something forward. And no matter how much they talk about, well, now we're cooperating regionally, it's not enough, or either it's not enough or it's too little, too late.
Yeah, not to mention most of the entertainment is on the south side, the Opera House. I've seen you at the Wells Theater before in person. The Tides, the Admirals, most of them, the Virginia Beach oceanfront. Of course, the Peninsula's got Busch Gardens, but that's more popular when the weather's nice. It really is a shame, but let's hope eventually it can get worked out. Jim, I
look around here and I see we got an 8,000-seat arena in downtown Norfolk, and how many miles away we've got another 8,000-seat arena in Hampton. Why? Why can't there be one regional arena, for God's sakes?
Yeah.
Somebody can't put something somewhere that's accessible to everybody. What in the world was the thought process behind that?
The only advantage of the Hampton Coliseum is they have decent parking on property. Norfolk does not. But
that's true.
But anyway, that's it. Jim, all the best to you, my friend. Good to hear your voice, and the best to you and your wife.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Good talking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Jim
Bye-bye.
Ducibella right there. Stay tuned. We'll be back after these messages. Linda Matney Gallery has iconic paintings and photographs for sale. The owner, Lee Matney, graduated from the University of Georgia and Hampton Roads Academy in Newport News. Visit and watch the website lindamatneygallery.com for pop-up content.
Sakura Japanese Restaurant in Chesapeake is your destination for excellent Japanese food, featuring fresh sushi and hot dishes prepared in the kitchen for lunch and dinner. Sakura is located at 1437 Sam's Drive at the Walmart Way Crossing. Oh Yummy Sushi is at the Renaissance Place at 401 North Great Neck Road in Virginia Beach. Both Sakura in Chesapeake and Oh Yummy Sushi in Virginia Beach are available with DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, and Pickup. Tasty Japanese food the way you want it is at Sakura and Oh Yummy Sushi.
Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville in Virginia Beach, open daily for lunch and dinner. Mike and the staff will take good care of you. Burgers, steaks, salads, appetizers, desserts, and much more. Great atmosphere, a nice bar, spacious dining room. 1255 Fordham Drive in Virginia Beach. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, open in Yorktown. Go by and see Paul and his wonderful staff. High-quality chicken fingers, fries, coleslaw, Texas toast. It is delicious. The great chicken sandwich, cane sauce, a kids menu, refreshing beverages, tailgates. They've got it all. Follow Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers on social media. They are open daily. At Mihogar Restaurant in Norfolk, they have Mexican pozole, chicken or pork soup. It is delicious at Mihogar. Matney Gallery consults for museum acquisitions and investment art for private and public collections in Virginia and elsewhere. Specialists in Southern Art, International Contemporary, and Virginia colleges. Southern Art and photography as well. Lee Matney is available to speak in front of your group. He is a trusted partner. Consultations are always confidential. All right, connect with Greg Bicouvaris on Facebook, on YouTube at Greg Bic, that's GregBic. Our website is gjbtv.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Greg Bicouvaris. Connect with me on X at Greg Bic, GregBic. Of course, our show's on Audacy and wherever you get your podcast as well. Thank you.
So, what's Greg's problem?
I'm very mad!
God, I'm so mad right now!
I know you're mad. I know you're upset.
It's time for What Teased Greg Off.
All right, What Teased Me Off brought to you by Mihogar, celebrating 29 years of excellent food, lunch and dinner 7 days a week in Norfolk. Congratulations to Armando. Kenny, people who can't sustain a meeting time, they constantly make excuses, and then they wonder why people move on from them.
Oh, yeah. Who wants to schedule a meeting with someone you know isn't going to be there?
Or make an excuse. Side roads, lack of cleaning snow. I mean, really, we can clean the main roads, but what are the city vehicles for? They pick up trash, they pick up recycling, and of course, or they'll foster it out to somebody, and they pick up leaves. Why can't they remove snow from the side roads?
Greg, they only got one truck for the side roads, and then one guy who drives it. His name is Joe.
Right.
And he can't do everything.
Yep. New neighbors, Kenny, that don't remember where their house is, and their friends just park right by your house like it's some type of big Mardi Gras party. And they don't leave.
No. And they take up like all the space in front of your house. They can't pull up or go backwards.
That happens in big box stores too when you're trying to park.
Oh, sure. Well, I think I did this one last year, and it's kind of related to what you just said, but drivers with four-wheel drive trucks who drive in the snow and they think because they have four-wheel drive, they can stop faster. Well, guess what? You can't. Maybe you can handle the snow better when you're driving forward, but stopping isn't any faster unless you can change the laws of physics. Doctors' offices that charge a fee if you cancel less than 24 hours prior to the appointment, but when they cancel the appointment, I, the patient, get nothing. I get diddly squat. Don't you think they should have to pay me?
Of course.
It's a one-way street, and they're the ones taking up the whole lane.
Thank you, Kenny. Sports Scene will continue after this. Matney Gallery consults for museum acquisitions and investment art for private and public collections in Virginia and elsewhere. They are specialists in Southern art and photography, international contemporary, and Virginia colleges. For more, log on to lindamatneygallery.com.
A tradition of excellence for over 50 years is the Aberdeen Barn Steakhouse in Virginia Beach. Start your experience off with she crab soup, an assortment of appetizers such as the fried oyster Rockefeller, crispy calamari, just to name a few. Aberdeen Barn is the finest premium steaks, prime rib, grilled tomahawk ribeye, seafood, chicken, pasta dishes, and live music in a most pleasing atmosphere. Open daily. Visit them at 5805 Northampton Boulevard in Virginia Beach. Call 464-1580 and log on to aberdeenbarn.net.
Buffalo Wild Wings in Newport News. Great lunch and dinner late night at Buffalo Wild Wings. Delicious food, wings, appetizers, beverages, all the games on TV. Open 7 days a week. Like Buffalo Wild Wings on Facebook. Friendly and hardworking staff. Jefferson Avenue in Newport News by Patrick Henry Mall. Sakura Sushi Bar is now open in Virginia Beach. For one-of-a-kind dining experience, Sakura in Red Mill is a favorite of locals and tourists. Tasty sushi prepared fresh for you, as well as delicious entrees from the kitchen. This is the go-to place for sushi lovers. Enjoy lunch and dinner daily with some refreshing cocktails and adult beverages. Sakura Sushi Bar is located at 2137 Upton Drive and is open daily. Call 757-522-7288 and enjoy your next meal at Sakura Sushi Bar at Red Mill Commons. Welcome back to our second segment of Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Glad you're with us right here on the Audacy app and wherever you get your podcasts. Let's talk to George McClain. He's a regular from the Marksman Firearms Training Center and Indoor Shooting Range. George, how are you, my friend?
Trying to stay warm right now, but I'm successful in doing that. So doing pretty good. Hope you are too.
Very good. Of course, I guess start off with new leadership in Washington D.C.
Thank goodness, thank God. We're past those previous 4 years, and hope we never see them again.
Absolutely. Talking to George McClain. And George, we've talked about this for years. And unfortunately, New Orleans was a perfect example of what we're talking about. It's not about the gun. It's about the person. In this case, it was the vehicle that killed several people.
Well, yes, you're exactly right. So I'm assuming if our previous guy was still in office, we'd have a banning legislation on something prohibiting vehicles, to follow their illogical reasoning that they have, tried to perpetrate on all the rest of us and say, well, the gun is the bad thing. The gun's never the bad thing, no more than a hammer being used to kill somebody is the bad thing. It's a person swinging the hammer, or it's a person pulling the trigger, or it's a person driving the vehicle into a crowd. Common sense just, eludes a lot of people. That's about all I can say about it.
What's going on in the first quarter at the Marksman? Anything new as far as accessories or the range?
No, I mean, that's pretty standard stuff. I will say we have a gunsmith on the staff now, which fairly new. We've had some off and on over the years. This is a young gent. His name's Eric. Very knowledgeable, very good at what he does. So while he's not, we're not custom building firearms, but someone has a malfunctioning firearm or one that's just worn out, where before you might have to go. The other guy that we were using was up in New Kent County, which obviously is a far piece to drive. So right now you can bring him in. I would call, make an appointment with him, make sure that he's there. He's usually there full time. And so I think that's a good new service that we're offering. Hopefully he'll be with us for quite a while.
The Marksman in Newport News, the 520 Industrial Park Drive in Newport News, of course, and the Denby section close to Fort Eustis, accessible to everybody. There's something for everyone. George, the hours pretty much Monday through Saturday, appointment Sunday.
10 to 6, Monday through Saturday. Sundays, we're still reserving for our concealed classes when we have those. We may get to where we're back, 7 days a week. It's got a lot to do with staffing and the amount of business right now. We have not recovered fully to the pre-COVID levels, 100%. We're still kind of getting there. So, and in doing that, the business has to be managed to where your hours don't, the amount of hours, the time that you're open is what I'm referring to, can't really exceed the amount of business that's being produced. So there's got to be a balance there to where we're not overspending in pay and expenses with keeping the place open versus what we have coming in. So that's kind of a step-by-step balance act that you have to do to build back up when we've had such a reduction in business that we experienced during COVID.
Very nice. Talking to George McClain from the Marksman in Newport News, of course. And George, talk about the range and how it's evolved over the years.
Well, I don't know that. When you say range, I'm thinking the actual range itself versus the entire business. Which some will say, well, he's got the range, but the range itself has been primarily still what we've always had. It's 8 lanes. We've got 4 lanes. It's 15 yards, and 4 lanes. It's 25. And it's primarily a handgun range. We get a lot of requests from people who want to come in and shoot high-powered rifles, and the range is itself is just not made for that. The backstop is not made for that. There was a time that we could get frangible ammo for like 223/556 for ARs, and as long as we could get the frangible ammo, we would let guys bring their ARs in and shoot that. But then we would have people that would actually sneak in armor-piercing AR ammo instead of, we would require that they buy our frangible ammo if you're going to do the AR deal. But then some would also bring in some armor-piercing stuff, which obviously caused some damage to the backstop. So we just had to stop that entirely. Same thing with shotguns. We used to allow them to do that, and then guys were shooting the lights out of the place up in the ceiling, and it just got to where if you can't control a firearm any more than that, you don't need to be shooting it. So we've had to stop the shotguns. So it's we will allow you to shoot 22 long rifle and a rifle. And there's a lot of father-son combos where the dads will come in and want to teach their sons to shoot and start with a 22, which is fine. Again, we've got cameras on there. We try to keep an eye on everybody and what they're doing to make sure we've got people that's not damaging the place and or that are unsafe for the other customers that's on the range. And you would think that everyone would come in there would be responsible, act responsible, be safe, and you would be absolutely surprised to look at some of the security video that we have of what people do when they get on the range, and it's just asinine. And so we've had to kick people out. Our first and foremost mission is to provide a safe environment for our customers and also our employees. And so we stand by that. So I make no apologies when we have to ask someone to leave. We try to do that tactfully. We just don't become belligerent and get in and grab somebody and quote unquote throw them out kind of a deal. But we've had to ask people to leave because of that. So we expect you when you come into the range, act like a responsible adult and don't endeavor to shoot the place up and damage things. We have to repair all that. That takes time. We lose business from that. The costs go up, which obviously has to get passed on to the customer. That funds have to come from someplace. So we just ask people to be respectful. Come in, do what you want to do as far as shooting. Keep your your sights on your target. Be safe. Recognize that you got other people around you. And, don't wave your gun all over the place. Keep it pointed down line. So just basic safety principles of gun ownership and gun use.
Yeah, not to mention, too, I mean, just whether you're at the grocery store, home, work, school. I mean, there was a recent shooting in Tennessee. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And, of course, you can't put but so many rules down because the nefarious people will find a way to break those rules. And you got it. That's what's so good about the marksman. It'll get you physically, mentally, and spiritually prepared for any situation. The lack of preparation renders failure, and we've been seeing a lot of that for the last several years. People need to be aware. I mean, when you step out the door, whether it's a car, I've seen people get hit by cars just walking carelessly, and that's one thing too. I've got no use for jaywalkers in the middle of the night or who walk in neighborhoods who don't hear or see a car. That's when accidents happen, and you can control some of those, but jaywalkers are an issue that has been going on for decades.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I see a lot of it. I don't guess these would qualify for jaywalkers, but it's the same deal. Driving, through a strip mall or shopping mall, or right in front of a grocery store where the main part of the parking lot is, and you're driving through that, and you got people coming out of the store. And they're either looking at their phone or not looking at anything other than looking down, and they walk right out, and I've seen them come out of the door of the grocery store, maybe pushing a shopping cart. They don't look left, right, anywhere. They look straight ahead and push that cart right straight ahead. Now, I'm aware of that, and so I'm cognizant, and I'm looking around to make sure that I'm watching, folks driving slow, and come to a stop. But these people they're not in the crosswalk. They're just walking out, but they don't look. And your typical jaywalker like that, I know what you're talking about. They'll just run out and do the same thing. They don't look left. They don't look right, and eventually somebody's going to get run over and injured very severely, if not killed. But they're going to get hit, and again, you would think first thing I do when I'm getting ready to cross the street like that is, like we taught our kids, back in grade school, you're looking both ways, and you look left, you look right, and you look left again, because that's the closest lane that's going to be to you as you're walking, they're crossing, and I don't know, people they got their heads up and locked these days. I don't know what's going on with them, but something needs to happen to get them to wake up a little bit.
Very good, George. Leave us with a good thought.
Well, right now it's stay warm and be safe. The roads are icy. Slow it down or don't drive at all, until they're clear. On a defense mechanism, make sure you're carrying your gun safe and on safe. Especially if you're out and you lose your footing, you slip, you fall down. You want to make sure that firearm is anchored to you. That's not going to get away from you. Hit the ground and go off. So just be safe and get that thing anchored to where it's secure.
Very good. George McClain from the Marksman and Newport News. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of this month, and we look forward to talking to you next month.
All right, Greg, you take care and be safe.
Very good. George McClain from the Marksman. Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris will continue on the Audacy app after
Mi
this.
Hogar is your restaurant for the finest Mexican cuisine in Hampton Roads. At Mi Hogar, everything is prepared fresh in a casual and comfortable atmosphere. Enjoy traditional favorites such as quesadillas, tacos, burritos, and fajitas, as well as refreshing beverages. Mi Hogar is located at 4201 Granby Street and is a tradition in Norfolk. Call 640-7705 and log on to MiHogarMexicanRestaurant.com. At Mi Hogar, there's something for everyone.
Congratulations again to Ohio State for winning the national championship over Notre Dame. My dad and I had a chance to meet Woody Hayes. That was a great moment in 1986. My mother graduated from the Ohio State University, and my parents got married there. So obviously it's personal. All the best to both schools in 2025. both Notre Dame and Ohio State. Excellent game. This segment is brought to you by Linda Matney Art Gallery. Go by and see John Lee Matney and the great staff right there, where art comes alive in Williamsburg. Always great exhibits, great shows. Excellent website as well, lindamatneygallery.com. Give them a call at 757-675-6627. And of course, they are on Facebook, Linda Matney Gallery. Fine art, exquisite art. Don't let art vanish in Williamsburg. Excellent music in the background, great entertainment right there at Linda Matney Art Gallery, 5435 Richmond Road. Browse, shop, visit in Williamsburg at the Linda Matney Art Gallery. Thanks to our good friends at Lee Matney Art Consultancy and Gallery, photographs and art consulting right there in beautiful Williamsburg. Iconic paintings and photographs. They've got a lot of great resources, pop, art, surrealism, and of course abstraction right there at Linda Matney Art Gallery, the Colonial Capital on Richmond Road. Google them, follow them on social media. Congratulations again to Ohio State for winning the national championship over Notre Dame. My dad and I had a chance to meet Woody Hayes. That was a great moment in 1986. My mother graduated from the Ohio State University, and my parents got married there, so obviously it's personal. All the best to both schools in 2025, both Notre Dame and Ohio State. Excellent game. I want to thank our guests today, Jim Ducibella and George McClain. For more, go to gjbtv.com. Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris is on the Audacy app as well. For Ken Slobotkin, I'm Greg Bicouvaris. Thanks for listening to our January show, and we'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.